Today we are here to talk about Pivo. So Pivo is the mobile wallet by OP, like Håkan stated, and with me here there's gentleman Jussi Juntunen from OP. So he's going to tell you more about the design and how the product actually came to life. So this is a very kind of a very typical project for us because multi-vendor relationship. So our responsibilities were some of the product design collaboration and that. And then I worked as the visual lead for the version 1.0. And then there's Jukka Koops, Timo Roos that helping me with visual design, Reeta Laamo from Red and Blue helping us with some icon stuff. And the other parties involved were N2 Marketing. They were involved with us in the naming and the overall marketing communications, and Toinen PSD worked as a media agency.
Yeah. So shortly about our team in Oulu. At first, my name is Jussi Juntunen, and I come from Oulu. I work for OP Bank, and I'm in the new mobile development unit that we have in Oulu. And I've been in this Pivo project since the very beginning, and I have this mixed role as a service designer, UI designer, visual designer, and a user researcher. And shortly about the team, we have at the first there were only 3 of us, me and Christian Luoma and Tuomas Jomppanen, but now we have several people in server teams and clients and testing. And in a nutshell, Christian is our product owner, and he's the guy with the vision, and he's like trying to figure out what should we do next. And Tuomas Jomppanen is our development manager who tries to keep the Pivo engine running all the time, and my role is to take care of the design and the end user perspective. As a short background for the project, at first I'm not the right person to talk about like OP's mobile wallet strategy or whatsoever. I'm just a designer. Christian would be the right person to talk about that. But what I know about it, there were some people in OP on the upper floors, and they thought that we should build a Finnish mobile wallet before some like global company comes and takes the market. And it was also understood that we should prepare for mobile payments as well. Mobile payments have been coming like for 10 years or so. And already in the first studies we noticed that the actual payment moment with the card is not a problem for users. So we decided to focus on the moment before and after the actual payment, meaning like personal finance management and understanding your money consumption and loyalty programs and so on. And also in the very beginning, it was quite clear that we're gonna separate this thing from the OP brand. So we had to start building a new brand as well as the product. That's just shortly about the background. This was the starting point. So from the concept design point of view, we had this magical situation that we actually had nothing. So we had some kind of a governance from the business side, but we had no team, we had no process, and product itself was just kind of starting to shape in our minds. And we didn't have a brand, so it wasn't limiting us either. So basically we had a freedom to try things and make prototypes and interview people and so on. That's a kind of extraordinary situation from design point of view, for us at least. I remember starting with the concept design somewhere early back then by trying different ways to visualize money consumption and time. And especially in a shorter time span, we not like a long-term, like comprehensive finance management that, for example, OP.fi is doing. We came up with this phrase, "Am I broke?" to kind of describe the idea of the concept in Finnish, like olenko kusessa at the moment. And it's like taking a quick glance into your wallet and check your situation. And I tried to think different kind of meters. I had these like speed meters and temperature as an analogies for the balance, for showing the balance. But on the other hand, we also had this question: can I afford this? Which is a big, it's kind of a wider theme than just your current account balance. It's also about seeing into the future, or at least in the near future. And at some point, I had this idea about like a horizontal graph view. You could peek into the future or into past.
So, and I mean, a lot of people talk about lean now, so it's kind of like becoming this kind of trendy thing. And people's actually, it's really interesting, kind of pretty much a textbook example of actually doing something kind of like starting from a very vague idea, trying to make it concrete somehow, and then kind of slowly progressing towards the actual end product. And what was really for us when we came like for the project in the middle way, it was actually really interesting to see that the guys had started things like video prototyping already in very early stage. So the idea kind of like when you don't have a product, you have a vague idea of a timeline which should work and which should do a couple of things. So they were like very crude kind of a PowerPoint animations, and then like static screens on a video and a story basically, which the guys used that actually to communicate the idea and also probe and test the how it works like. So this is the lean process. Basically, it's a continuous cycle based on kind of measuring and iterating and figuring out what to do next. And when done wrong, lean can actually very easily lead to kind of this kind of over iteration, that all the good ideas kind of like get lost in a way of like trying to measure everything. But the thing is, like, the best ideas, best designs, they are really hard to measure. So you have to kind of like just to somehow figure out what to do and then put it together somehow and then see how it works like. And with Pivo, this is really interesting because this basically went into the brand as well. So Pivo is probably, I don't know, one of the 5 or 5th candidate as a brand, as a name. So there's N2 involved, and before that they were like, I don't know, just few vague ideas what it could be called. It was, first we saw it was called Lomsa. So I think Pivo is far better. But yeah, that's sort of like, this is interesting in that sense that the whole iteration measuring, trying out scoping stuff, it also went to the kind of very core of the product, the visual identity, the brand, what's it called, things like that.
Yeah. So about user research, we do that a lot, and we made our first user interviews actually before we had anything like any concept or any URL or any code, just to be sure that we're doing the right thing. And we've been doing loads of concept validation studies with every new concept basically. We've been doing usability tests and so on. And I personally do the majority of those because I was a user researcher in my previous life in Nokia. But yeah, and in addition to that, we also get lots of customer feedback in Facebook and Twitter. And what is funny, we actually get tens of mails every day from our users. Like basically comments, requests, bugs, good and bad, basically. And we react and respond as quick as possible and analyze the comments and report any bugs. And ask for address for a t-shirt, maybe. Yeah, but that's shortly about user research that we do.
One of the fascinating things with Pivo is that basically the UI is the product. So this is, in a sense, very untypical Finnish service or Finnish product, in the sense that kind of like the whole kind of UI is the actual product, and that kind of like the graph itself, it's the heart of the whole thing. So that was very interesting to see that the guys basically they have very articulated vision from the day one what it could look like.
Yeah, we basically this is the mood board I made already in the beginning, and we found the common vision about the visual style and the feeling already in the beginning, and we wanted to do simple and stylish concept, like modern and clean looking and minimalistic. And we actually even said aloud that we were gonna do the coolest app in Finland at the moment. And there were signs, like a first signs of flat design coming up at the time, because Windows Phone was getting more common and common. And we wanted to do flat as well. And all of us liked the idea that if the application is doing only one thing, but it's doing good, like well, for example, the weather apps, which were, I think, big hits back then, like plenty of different apps showing the current weather. And we thought that let's use the same analogy to build a personal finance app. Do one thing and do it well.
So this is the first ever iteration that I did for Pivo. So I talked with Christian, like he explained the idea, like, well, should it be something like this, for example? So it's really kind of like when the vision was so clearly articulated, we had very common ground from the get-go what to actually do, and it basically started from there. And also, which is quite rare, especially in Finnish projects. Jussi and the guys, they had nailed the kind of design principles down pretty well. So what it should look like, what it should feel like. And here's a couple of slides about them.
Yeah, some examples of our brand attributes. It might sound a bit of a bullshitty thing, but it's actually pretty interesting. Since we didn't have a brand and our product was about to shape, we had this kind of a brand workshop. And we actually came up with 4 different brand attributes that would describe the brand through our product or through the client. And we actually used those to reflect our decisions and the design. And the first one was designed or well-designed, muotoiltu in Finnish. And I think good design is about details, and we choose one attribute to reflect that everything we do needs to be well designed. And here are some examples from the UI, all the shapes and colors and minimalism and basically movement on the UI and shadows that react to the height of the circle and stuff like that. So small examples from the UI, but they are made like pixel by pixel.
And this kind of actually make the experience when you actually use the app, because it just feels right.
Second attribute was human, inhimillinen in Finnish. It's mainly about the language. We use kind of a tone of voice type of thing, so we don't use any clumsy technology, gibberish. But it's about design as well. For example, this circle bouncing there when you open the app, the client is doing its best to load the content, but all you see is a transition to the actual graph. So that's kind of a human thing to do. We have greetings based on time, and we have the graph itself. It's not like mathematically accurate. We wanted it to be like soft and curvy instead of being like mathematic. So it's more human. And the sinking circle is actually quite a human way to indicate that you're running out of money. And we try to be intelligent as well. Älykäs was our third attribute. We don't ask everything from the user. We make decisions on behalf of the user, and this application actually calculates quite a lot on the background. So, and it also opens the logic for the user. So it kind of creates the illusion of the intelligence when you actually tell that what we're doing here. We try to foresee salary and other future payments from the data and so on. Our server team has made quite a lot of magic behind this.
It's actually really, well, depending on, from your point of view, is either really scary or really interesting what you can actually see from their consumption data.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and the intelligence can be actually seen in the colors as well. We have one set of white icons that are tinted with the brand or partner colors. And we even have a system that the foreground is based on the background, like automatically. So there's some intelligence there as well. Credible, uskottava. We have to remember that we are a bank application after all. So we are required to have a certain level of reliability and trust. I don't know if you have seen this kind of screen before, but it's from our Pivo room, from our developers room. And if some of these status meters turns to red, people start like cursing and running around in circles. So I think the credibility comes from the reliability of the service in our case. And also credibility can be communicated through the design, for example, certain tone of voice in some more serious businesses and so on. And also in the visual design, the design itself, it's modern, but at the same time, it's clear and kind of honest. So we really can't do too much like a acid type of design, like everything bouncing and so on. It has to be credible, it has to be trustworthy. This is actually the evolution of the Pivo graph, our core. There are some pictures from my wireframes, and then to the actually working code. I think this was the first view, which was actually working. That shows the evolution pretty well, and we tested several versions of it already in the beginning. And before Sami joined, we even tested several graphic designers, almost all from Oulu, at least I think. And we kind of had the idea and strict vision what we wanted, and it didn't kind of match with all of the people we interviewed. And I think we took a big step ahead when Sami joined us, and we really get to do the final visual design and define the design language as well. We've been arguing quite a lot, or at least argumenting, but I think that's how the design happens.
Yeah, so final being very relative term here. So I actually, when I put the deck together, I counted nearly 1,000 image files from my hard drive that had either Pivo or Lomps or any other name involved. This is one small part of the iteration we did. So this, I wanted to show this because this kind of like tells you the level of detail the application and the design team took. So this is just the iteration of what is the dominant interaction metaphor from the actual canvas. How do you open up the card menu? How do you get behind the graph? So there's like, I think 10, 15 different corners, only 2 locations. We didn't try the left side that much, but anything from here or here, it's been done and tested. So, and then sort of like at some point we kind of like, we started very early from the card metaphor as the main interface. So at some point, kind of like the twisted corner came kind of as a revelation. Oh well, this is how it should be actually. Then we proceeded kind of figuring out how does it animate, what's in the background, how does it move when you tap that, and we kind of ended up stripping away everything from there. And if you look Pivo now, the corner's gone already. So that's kind of like, it's been done, and then the design kind of like has gotten more, the application has gotten more complex. So basically the corner had to go, but there are other kind of like very natural and fluid ways of interacting with the content. So the 1.0 was launched in May 2013. So the development time was about very intensely, I think 7, 8 months, 9 months. And of course, as is a service, there's 1.5, 2.0. It's still kind of like the team is growing and development is going on. We started with just the basic set. So there was iOS app, Android app, and then a simple website. And we worked a lot with N2 at this stage as well, kind of like to spar and discuss about what is the heart of the product? How should it be kind of marketed? And how the message should be communicated to people? And at the time, a year ago, this was actually, I think, fairly unique in Finland, that you actually start telling the communication product first and the UI first. So this is what I mean when I say about the UI is the product. So it went all the way to the marketing. And of course, there was much more kind of like more playful storytelling about the benefits and what are the user benefits of the app. But it was kind of like how it launched in the beginning. And all the testing, all that kind of stuff really paid out. So there's actually one genuine comment from the iTunes App Store. So one of the best and most useful apps I've seen. And you think you'd spend any money but good things, Pivo tells the real truth. But this was kind of like this was the whole point of the graph. The whole point of like, are we fucked or not, thinking in the beginning. So how much do you spend money, where does the money go to? And the metrics were and are still pretty impressive. So I think some stage Pivo was the third most opened app in Finland, right after Tinder and Facebook. I can't remember which order they were, but they were the top 2 ones. And Pivo was the third one. And 1/3 of the users, they open up Pivo daily. And 2/3 open up on a weekly basis. And the rating still is 4.5 out of 5 in the App Store. And so far, the app has over 350,000 downloads, which is pretty good in Finland. And that's kind of like the metrics, but how do you get here?
Yeah, we actually had loads of fun thinking that how should we integrate with Tinder. Come up with anything. Yeah, just to conclude some random facts from our point of view from Oulu. This is, by the way, our Pivo room. All of our developers and testing are sitting in the same room, basically. Our people tend to end up doing things that they like to do and they love to do. And that leads to the fact that people are passionate on what they're doing. And we have really competent people in every phase. And that's pretty much so that you have to be competent if you're in this project, because it's not a waterfall, it's more like a tsunami type of thing, like process-wise. We don't do meta work. Of course, we need to do some spec and documentation and follow the progress and so on. But we try to focus on to do the actual service. Passion for product. All of us are using Pivo every day, and some of us are really passionate on doing this. We have real arguments going on almost daily basis. People really care what they do, and laid back and relaxed atmosphere. Thomas has a personal mission to make Pivo the nicest place to work in Oulu, and we are actually heading there because all the comments that we hear from our summer trainees and employees, they indicate that pretty clearly. We have very startup-like atmosphere going on.
It was really interesting to see because Pivo is a startup within a bank, and you'd think the bank's actually kind of like very kind of non-flexible, very kind of like traditional work environment, but it's completely reverse. Even in the beginning when there was like just a couple of guys in a room, right? It was so easy to see kind of resemblance on like huge internet companies abroad, for example. So people are passionate. People actually they argue for what they believe in, and they have a very strong point of view. But they're not too stubborn to actually not to give in for the kind of like the I don't know, right opinion about whatever's chosen. And kind of as a designer, it's really interesting to work with a team like this, but you actually get to do so much stuff in such a short time. So work happens in bursts. And I mean, we're here in Helsinki. The majority of the team is Oulu. They visit quite regularly right next door, but it works very well. You just have to have the personal introduction, face to face, some FaceTime every now and then. But other than that, like Basecamp, any digital channels, they're fine. And currently, like I said, the state of the service, services are never done. So I've been really impressed how people has grown their team. They've grown their marketing. They probably, I would say, their internal social media team is doing a lot of things first in Finland, at least on the way they react on the response speed they have. So it's really interesting to see how this develops toward the 2.0, 3.0 in the future as well. And now, then we've received some recognition for the work. So a couple of trophies from Vuodenhuiput, grand one, and then latest the Red Dot Award from Germany from the interaction design. So again, UI being the product, it is so clear that it actually communicates without the language barrier, with the language barrier to someone abroad as well. And to conclude, the comical ending, here's our team in Berlin 2 weeks ago. Well, Jussi from OP, the rest of the guys had gone to sleep already. If professional tip, if a photographer tells you to cheer, make sure you count when he's taking the photo. But that's pretty much about it. So thank you very much for listening. Thanks for coming.